It's the Talk to Me Network on AM 1510, FM 99.9, 94.7, and 100.7. The views expressed on the following program are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and are not necessarily those of WMEL staff, management, or advertisers.
Steckler, your host for Helping Seniors, the radio arm of Helping Seniors of BrevardCounty.org. Our job is to inform, educate, and connect seniors and those that care for seniors with resources that they need to do the best job they can to age with dignity and many times just simply to live. There's an awful lot to know, there's an awful lot to learn, there's an awful lot to do. If you need help, here's the phone number to call so you can talk to our information specialist, Kay Kaiser, and her number is area code 321-473-7770, 473-7770. And if you call Kay, you'll talk to a person, and if she's on the line, you'll go to our voicemail, and she'll call you right back. But you will get a return call. And it's interesting for me to be able to tell you that almost every sponsor we have that helps us pay our bills is an organization or a business that's interested in care of seniors. For instance, Kindred at Home, the Eye Institute, Dr. Lee Sheldon, my panelist today, Bill Johnson, elder law attorney, radio station WMEL 1510, Woodstock Hospital Systems, 11 Home Care, Zon Beachside Assisted Living Facility, Riverview Senior Resort, Organized Creative Solutions, Brevard Chiropractic, and Cobblestone Real Estate, and another is our newest sponsor is Market Street Memory Care. We just did a big black and white brunch over there a couple of Sundays ago, folks. And it's a beautiful place. And you all should know that Brevard County is constantly bringing on new resources and businesses that can cater to elders. And we know that the cost of senior care is going up, but some of the new facilities are doing everything they can to hold the line at the best possible cost to you that they can possibly do. And one of those is on Beachside. They're really holding the cost down. But we're going to talk a little bit about dentistry today and some incorrect thinking that marketing brings to this dental business. There's some other things I'd like to talk about a little bit about the recent election, because I think it's important for people to know that we all have to be involved in what's happening. It's just not something that's going to happen or improve or get it better by itself. So with that in mind, Dr. Lee Sheldon, why are you so concerned about discount dentistry? You're a periodontist, and there are periodontists involved in discount dentistry.
Oh, there are. Am I concerned about discount dentistry? Yeah, I guess so, because I brought up the topic. I mean, so I'm concerned. I think that there's a certain amount of deception that occurs whenever we're marketing. And given that I'm one of the biggest marketers in Brevard County, the biggest dental marketers, I think I say that with some perspective.
No, you're right on, because your name is all over this county.
You're right, it is, and purposely it's all over this county, and I've made it so, and you've helped me to make it so.
Yeah.
But all right, there's a certain purpose that I had in doing that. We can discuss that sometime. The difficulty that we have is it's very difficult for the patient to differentiate what the difference is from dentist to dentist. And if there is no ability to differentiate, there's only one thing that patients will differentiate on, and that's on cost. So they'll say, well, I can get this cheaper here than I can get it there, and therefore I'm going to get a better deal. And if everything were exactly the same, in other words, if I went to a particular store and I decided to buy a particular brand name of a what? Give me an appliance. Of a toaster. Nobody uses toasters anymore. We'll say a toaster. And if I saw the same brand toaster in store A and store B and on Amazon, and it was cheaper one of those places, that's fine. I'd buy the cheaper toaster. Why? Because they're exactly the same toaster. But when we start talking about a particular service, such as a crown on a tooth, a crown does not equal a crown does not equal a crown. In other words, it's not a manufactured product. Well, part of it is, but it has to do very much with what is diagnosed and whether it's diagnosed properly. Number two, how the tooth is actually ground down or prepared by the dentist. Number three, how the impression is taken and how accurate the impression is. Number four, what the laboratory does with the crown, with the impression once the laboratory receives it. Number five, once the dentist gets the crown back, verifying the fit and making sure the bite and all the contacts are correct. And then number six, which is fairly minor, how the crown is cemented. But a consumer doesn't have any ability to differentiate anything other than, oh, I've got a front tooth that looks good, or I've got a front tooth and it looks bad. That's the only thing a patient knows how to do. And so I become concerned when I know there are different qualities of every different step along the way that I took, but there's no way that if a patient doesn't, there is a way, but if the patient doesn't take the time and the wherewithal to study and to know a little bit more about his or her mouth, and by the way, his or her dentist, then the patient is only choosing by price, and sometimes the patient can actually spend more money as a result.
You know you're never going to send me a topic to talk about on the radio show that I'm not going to do some research on it myself.
Yeah, okay.
You know that.
Yeah, I do.
I started an internet search on discount dentistry, and I was truly amazed to find out how many companies practice this and how little they tell you. And I kept pressing the buttons about learn more, learn more, learn more. I never did, after 30 minutes on the internet, I never did find out what exactly type procedures that discount dentistry would take care of.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, that's the difference between what we call insurance, our dental plan insurance, and then it's confusing. And I when you sent me some questions today, I went back and I asked you another question, and I said, well, how do you differentiate between dental insurance, discount dentistry, and whether or not you're going to the right person? Because, like you say, it'd be very easy to get the wrong person. It's just like I would want somebody with the jaws of life opening my chest up to work on my aorta. I like to have. I've still got. I can rub my chest and I can feel the little bumps where the wire was holding my chest back together. And as I get older, those little bumps become more pronounced. So I know I got you laughing again. Go ahead.
It's. In medical care, there is one standard of care. In dental care, we say there's one standard of care, but there really isn't. Let's look at it this way. All right, let's come up with level 1 dentistry. The patient has very little disease, gets a cleaning done, and the cleaning is done for cosmetic reasons, and maybe here and there you need a filling. That's level 1 dentistry. Level 2 dentistry might be, I need an extraction or multiple extractions. I need a denture. I need a crown, or I need a bridge. Level 3 dentistry. I've got periodontal disease. My upper teeth don't fit my lower teeth. I've been missing lots of teeth for a number of years. I have any number of bite problems. And so that's level 3 dentistry. There's nothing in the United States that prevents a level 1 dentist from doing level 3 dentistry. And if that's the case, and the level 1 dentist is not trained at a level 3 level, and the patient doesn't know if the dentist is trained at a level 3 level, then the patient goes into the discount place. The discount place is there to make money. So am I, by the way. And the level 1 dentist, rather than send the patient to a level 3 dentist, may very well, in fact, quite often, do level 3 work in the hopes that it will be good enough to satisfy the patient and give the patient a great price on it, supposedly. Now, I'm a level 3 dentist, and I get to see that kind of work. And I just saw it yesterday, and I saw how it was totally mismanaged. And it wasn't, by the way, the patient came here from another state, and saw how the patient's jaws were totally mismanaged. The patient describes to me what's going on, and the problem was that she had a level 3 case that was done probably by a half-decent level 2 dentist, but should have been referred to a level 3 dentist because everything was off.
Okay. What were some of the specific dangers that you saw in observing a medical procedure? Because a dental procedure is a medical procedure. What was the danger you saw in it not being accomplished in the way you knew it should be? What was some of the dangers that woman was facing? This brings it home to our listener.
Okay. Essentially, there were no back teeth on the lower arch. And because the teeth were reconstructed in the way they were, there was no room for back teeth on the lower arch, and therefore the front teeth were taking an awful lot of stress. In other words, the bite was replaced in the front with the idea that maybe someday we'll get to the back, but there was no way on earth that the back could have been treated correctly. That's number one. Number two, aesthetically, it looked horrible and probably could have looked a lot better simply if it had been planned correctly. It's very much like trying to build a house without having an architect design the house first. And that's what occurred. In other words, we'll fill in the space with something. Okay, lady was missing some teeth. We'll fill in the space with some dental implants and try to stick some teeth on those dental implants with total disregard for what was going on in the rest of the mouth.
And that's a real danger because, you know, I go back thinking some of the first shows we did 10 years ago, 11 years ago. We talk. I keep thinking about my own teeth when I thought I had something done 25 or 30 years ago. It turned out what I thought was done wasn't done. But right. What they did to me was probably state of the art for what we had existing at the time, because it lasted until you worked on it.
Yeah, it lasted for a long time. That's right. Just because it wasn't what you thought it was doesn't mean the dentist didn't do a good job.
Right, yeah. But you know what? Believe it or not, that's the only time everybody's ever kept me from talking for 8 hours. I sat there in a dental chair, folks, and this was on a submarine tender, and the two dentists had been at sea with us the week before, and they saw where I had a loose tooth, and they said, "Joe, we need to fix that." So I said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, we want you to come up to the submarine tender on Saturday morning, and we'll work on you." I got up there, and those guys set me down in a chair and put a rubber dam in my mouth, and I had to keep my mouth open for 8 hours while they pulled teeth and put stuff down in my jawline and everything else. And then I had to go back the next day, and they finished the job up. But that was an experience. But it lasted for 25 years.
Yeah, that's darn good. That really is darn good.
And I actually got a cross made for Terry out of the dental gold to put in my mouth.
Really? Good.
So there was something good that came out of it. There's always, you know, folks, with Dr. Sheldon and I talk about this dentistry. We always get off the topic because I find when I talk to Dr. Sheldon, he's got a wealth of life experiences that it's just like when you call Kay at the office. You call and tell her a specific problem, and she starts asking you questions, and she finds out that what you really are calling about is really important, but there might be something that's even more important that you didn't think you needed to talk to somebody about. And I think a lot of dentists, doctors, and other practitioners deal with the body find this out, Lee, when they do more of a more thorough investigation. For instance, you didn't even say anything about X-rays and scans and everything. And since I've had dental implant work, I know the value of the type of equipment that you have that other dentists may not have. That will help certain cases that need certain types of implants.
It's true, and there's no standard of care when it comes to that. I'll go back to when I first started doing dental implants, which is in 1986. I would take a panoramic X-ray, and I'd use some tracing paper to figure out where the dental implant was going to be. Now, if you just use a standard X-ray, you only have a single view, a snapshot of the area. You certainly don't have a three-dimensional view of the bone, and you're operating in that bone. You need to know where that bone is going to be. I'm very fortunate that we were able to do as well as we were able to do. But with experience, there's a lot of good flying by the seat of your pants that you can do. You know, if you're a good pilot, if you get into trouble and your instruments aren't working anymore, you can still do visual flight. Well, with the amount of experience and training they had, I was still able to do visual surgery. But fast forward to today, where I have a three-dimensional CT scan, which I can't work without because I need to see where the bone is in a three-dimensional area before I plan it. And Michel is there doing his design, so he designs a guide so that when we put the implant in the mouth and we drill the hole, we drill it in the exact place where we plan to, and he does that on the computer, and we have a special 3D printer that prints out a surgical guide which can be inserted in the mouth, which directs things in the exact position. That's what we do. But still, not everybody who does dental implants does it to that degree of planning. You know, and so how does a patient know, oh, well, I can get an implant for such and such. Well, you charge so much for such and such. Yeah, but I charge so much for such and such because I want to make sure that it's absolutely perfect. What does this guy do for this price that we're not doing, or vice versa? And so we have to really explain to the patient exactly what we're doing in order to be able to make things work. That's why if I see a price of two different commodities, yet we may buy the same dental implant from the same dental manufacturer, we and the other guy. In fact, we probably do. Yet what we're doing in order to be able to make sure the implant is right is not frills. It's actually essential to make sure that we have the implant in the right place so the tooth is placed on the implant and it fits properly, and the patient gets as much of an opportunity for lifetime longevity of a dental implant as he or she possibly can.
I'd like to ask you a question as a professional dentist. With the recent election, with getting Trump elected President of the United States and knowing his extreme dislike for the Affordable Health Care Act, and we've talked on this radio show, and I've had panelists on here, I've talked to about hearing aids and other medical procedures that really are not covered by Medicare, and it's all out-of-pocket expenses. Certain types of dentistry are out-of-pocket expenses. Certain types of hearing aids for people, all of it is out-of-pocket expense, except maybe for veterans. I get my hearing aids to the VA. I'm very, very fortunate because the hearing aids I have, I mean, one hearing aid is $3,000, and I was amazed because I found out that many people only have one hearing aid because it costs so much. They can't afford two of them. But do you think that it's ever going to be possible that our country will recognize the seriousness of the loss of hearing, the loss of sight, and the diseases that are associated with the mouth that are so tangential to causing other problems within the body? Do you think our government will ever bring this kind of stuff under any type of Medicare plan where people will get better care, at least diagnostically?
I hope not. I think it would be the worst thing for dental care. I think you've seen medical costs rise as a result of some centralized organization thinking they can think better than I can. And
no,
physicians
that's not what I was. That's not what I was.
well,
talking
you
about.
asked me if the if we had the government taking over, whether in fact there'd be more affordability for the patient. And the answer
No,
is
that's not what I meant. That's
Okay,
not what I meant.
go ahead.
What I meant was, do you think it would be possible? Do you think we're any way that the government? Well, I use the word government. What I'm trying to get across, Lee, is access to care. People that can't even afford decent dental care. I'm not even talking about implants and stuff like that. I'm talking about just average dental care. There are people that can't afford that because if those same people were sick, they could go to the emergency room at the hospital and get taken care of.
Right.
But there's no emergency room to go to if you got a toothache.
Well, we're talking about a different thing. If a person
Okay.
we're talking about the size of the safety net in order to be able to make sure that everyone is taken care of. That's what we're talking about. That's not what I'm talking about when we're talking about discount dentistry. It's two different things. If you're asking me the size of the safety net so that somebody can afford to have a tooth extracted, I suppose that could be done, but it's already been done. We do have dental clinics in Brevard County that are emergency clinics that charge very little for extractions. If you're trying to get a patient out of pain or get out of infection, you can do that at a relatively good rate. Now, if you're asking me if the government was involved in that, and the amount of paperwork that dentist would then have to fill out in order to be able to get that to work, no, I don't think that can be done.
And I agree. I hope it's not done. Because that's not what I'm thinking about.
Okay.
I'm not thinking about that. I'm trying to think. We've only got 30 seconds left, folks. We're going to sign off in a
We
second.
can't talk in 30 seconds, Joe.
We'll keep about this on the other side of the break because I think that more people need to be aware of the fact that we are wasting a lot of dollars, and there are dollars that could be not wasted and still help people get care like you and I talk about.
I think so, but more after the break, I guess.
Okay. Folks, we're out of time. We'll take a break, and we'll come back on the other side of the break, and we got a couple other things we're going to talk about.
Lillian McDermott, weekdays at noon on AM 1510, FM 99.9, 94.7, and 100.7.
This is Joe Stecker, folks, back live with the second half of the show with Dr. Sheldon. Before we get back into
Before we get back to this,
Yeah,
let's
I'll get
talk
back to
about
you in a
what we're
minute.
going to talk about here.
You let me
Now,
talk
you
about-
tried to shut me off during the break, and I'm just ready to explode, and you're holding your piece of paper.
I
What's
know.
going on here?
Dr. Sheldon, will you be quiet just a minute? Folks, I want to remind everybody that Helping Seniors does everything they can to connect, inform, and educate people that need help. Our office number is 473-7770, and some of the sponsors for the second half of the show include Senior Scene Magazine, Hometown News, Spotlight Magazine, Seniors Helping Seniors, The Fountains of Melbourne, Courtney Braswell, Canadian Meds of Melbourne, Ear Care, Vitas Hospice, Aldea Today, and In-Home Personal Care Services, and Veterans Realty of Brevard. Folks, once a month I have Dr. Sheldon on the show, and I know that we cover a multitude of things and we talk about a lot of things. But the one thing I've never been afraid to ask Dr. Sheldon a question about Medicare, Medicaid, dentistry, medical practices, medication, the uses of salt, sugar, everything that we have been told all our lives that affect us probably in a less than good way. I know that I can ask Dr. Sheldon a question and he will either agree or disagree. And that's really the purpose of talk radio. Talk radio gives you, the panelists and the listeners, a chance to hear what panelists say to you. And if you don't agree, or if you have a question yourself, you can pick up that phone and call 241-1060, and you will be able to ask Dr. Sheldon a question about what he's talking about. So,
I got to tell you something. I hosted a TV show for a number of years.
I know.
And one day we had panelists talking about something. It was some medical disease, some disease. It had nothing to do with dentistry. We barely did dentistry in our program. And we had a guest who was involved in healthcare but wasn't a doctor. So we had like another physician, maybe two physicians, a nurse, and then this person who was involved in healthcare. And we were talking about whatever the disease was, prostate cancer, who knows what we were talking about. We got a call in. And we very seldom got a call on that TV show. It was on at 7 o'clock at night, and it was on Time Warner Cable that time, which is Bright House now. And we got a call, and the caller said, I can see why Doctor this is that. I can understand why Doctor you are involved, but Dr. Sheldon, I have no idea why you're on this program.
Why were you?
I was the host of the program.
You were the guy that was doing the program, right?
Exactly right.
It was your show.
Yeah. Should I say the same thing about you? No, I wouldn't do that.
Well, it points out something, Lee. It's very important for our listeners to understand. There are so many types of medical, dental, physical type care that are important to us as we age. And really only the medical aspect of it is provided for under our Medicare system. For the vast majority of the public, eye care is not provided. Hearing aids are not provided for. Certain types of braces and things like it are not provided for. And many times the people that need these types of things have no place to go. So they call our office. They call 473-7770, and generally we can find a doctor or a dentist or somebody in the community that will help those people at the price that they can pay. And the price they can pay is never a price that will even cover the cost of what that dentist or what that doctor does. And the dentist and the doctor does that for us to help people because they know those people hurt. And that's one of the big things about having a radio show the type that we do. You and I talk about this stuff, but I know and you know, because I have made phone calls to you to ask you where to go to get kinds of help I need for somebody.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So it's so important that listeners understand that if they bring the problem to the attention of somebody in the care network someplace along the line, there's a pretty good chance they're going to get help or care of the type that they need.
Well, it's the value of helping seniors in Brevard County,
Right.
because not only do you get some care, and that isn't just care, that can be roofing care, that can be plumbing care, that can be any kind of care,
Right.
but the people, I argue, and as you know, I have a big organization, and I'm speaking more and more nationally, and it's just invited to speak to the New Jersey Association of Periodontists this year. I'll be speaking to the American Academy of Periodontology in Boston in next September. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that I'm talking about. And one of the fundamental things that I am talking about is ethics. What about honesty and ethics in the way you deal with people? Well, one of the advantages of helping seniors in Brevard County is not necessarily finding something cheaper, although you might. What is important is the people who are helping seniors in Brevard County providers in any aspect of life, any service that you need, are people that are legitimate and they're going to do it right the first time and not gouge you. I mean,
Right.
they're going to do it because you're doing a service, the service costs a certain amount of money, and that's the amount of money they're going to charge. Now, occasionally, there are people who are going to call you and say, I need something at a very, very cheap price. I can't afford anything. Okay, so that becomes the safety net type of thing. And so there are providers that will do that. We're also talking about different levels of care, and emergency care, by the way, in dentistry is also always the cheapest care. Extraction is always the cheapest thing that can be done in the mouth. Yeah.
And that in most cases, that eliminates the problem.
That's right. Yeah, we're talking about infections of pain. Extraction will take care of that.
Right. But Lee, it's just like whether you rebuild a mouth or you rebuild a body or you rebuild a house or you rebuild the engine on a car. You can do it for cost A and cost Z. If everybody did it for the lower cost, more and more people will be out of business, because whether it be a medical service or a house building service or a car repair service, you have to build the element of profit into whatever you do in order for everybody to live fairly and squarely.
It's true. And so if you're asking for a lower cost, or you get a lower cost, you can't just stop there, particularly when it's a creative service. You know, I talked about the toaster in the first half. You buy the same toaster at, online or at a store, and you get the cheapest price. You're getting the cheapest price. When you're getting a service, services are all different. And they have to do with the quality of the training of the individuals actually providing that service. And so when you find a cheaper price, great. But then your next step is to analyze it and find out, what is the person doing for you at the higher price? What's the person doing for you at the lower price? What's the training of that person before you then make the decision as to whether that's the correct
But do you think that
service
you think that the average person, you think that the average person that's listening to our radio show would know? Well, before I ask that question, how many dentists do you think we have in the United States?
It's around 200,000, isn't it?
How many?
Around 200,000?
Okay, but folks, when Dr. Sheldon said he wanted to talk about discount dentistry and some of the things that we need to look out for when we talk about something we think is a good deal that may not be such a good deal, is that I picked a figure out of the roughly 200,000 dentists that we have, half of them practice discount dentistry.
Yeah, and we, by the way,
that's dangerous.
And we're opening up more dental schools, and we're graduating more and more dentists. And we already have, I'd say, an overabundance of dentists right now.
The same thing with lawyers. You get good lawyers, you get bad lawyers.
That's right.
You get lawyers that,
And but by the way, and the lawyers, they're not graduating fewer attorneys either, from what I understand. And they graduate a lot more attorneys per year than they do dentists. But then it still becomes, everybody's trying to make a living. And so then it becomes more incumbent upon the consumer, in this case the patient, to really get into what is going on before they make a decision as to who's going to do it and what the it is that they're going to get.
Well, I think I've had many things asked of me throughout my life, but it was recently I was coming out of the men's room at church. And as I came out of the men's room, a young woman saw me, walked over and said, "Joe, who is the best person to go into town and to go to in Brevard County to get a trust prepared?"
Yeah.
And here I am in church,
Right,
coming out of a men's room. And I thought, gee, many sakes, people must know me for getting around a lot around this place, but it shows the importance of people just don't know where to go for the right information. Can you imagine looking at the number of attorneys in a phone book or the number of dentists in the phone book and say, that's the person I want to go to? How in the thunder do the young people that are just getting started in this, how do you ever find the right person to go to? It's scary.
It is scary. It's even scarier when you're in the men's room and a woman is washing her hands in the sink next to you and she said, "I just couldn't wait in line anymore."
I haven't had that happen.
It happened to me.
It happened to you?
Yeah.
Well, I could tell a story, but I get, your way I would tell these stories. Sometimes you go into a restaurant and you have to go to the bathroom real bad, and you see where it says it's got a dress and it's got a pair of pants.
Yeah.
Men or women. The most horrible thing to have happen to you is you hit the men's door and it's locked, and you say, decision time. You hit the women's door and it's unlocked. You go in, do your thing, and you hear another door slam, and you say, I'm caught. And then somebody wise said to me, "Well, you could have said it was a transgender dressing room."
Exactly right. You can get away with it today.
You could have got away with it. It depends on the need, the urgency, and everything else.
And you're exactly right. If you have that problem, depends is the answer. So you're right.
Well, if you don't have them, it's not. You can't do that. No, folks.
Seriously now.
Seriously.
Yes.
And all joking aside, as we live our lives, and it is becoming a lot more complicated to get the right kind of service. I know that I've been listening to this radio station since 1992. And I've always felt that what I heard on WMEL was a good product. And when John advertises Ponte Vito restaurant, Terry and I were over at Ponte Vito one night years ago, and we looked up, and here's Bob and Ann Downey. And you know Bob Downey, he's dead now. He was a dentist.
Yep.
He was an Air Force dentist.
Yep.
And Ann came over and brought us a piece of Ponte Vito's bruschetta.
Yeah.
And Terry and I thoroughly enjoyed Ponte Vito's bruschetta. Terry makes a wonderful bruschetta, but that was pretty good bruschetta. But Ann
We go to
told
Ponte Vito at least once a month.
You've been there too?
Yeah. Oh, we go there a lot. Yeah.
Okay, hey John, do you like that? But folks, that's the beauty of talk radio. You can talk about what you want to talk about.
Talk about root canals. You can talk about implants. You can talk about
Yeah.
bruschetta, all in the same program.
But you always want to talk about things that hurt.
No, you want to talk about things that hurt. And as a matter of fact, there are times that you accuse me of doing things that hurt that don't hurt at all.
I have to say, folks, that Dr. Sheldon gives probably one of the best shots in any dentist I've ever been to. I hardly felt it. He did a root canal. Not a root canal, but did an implant on me, and I never felt it at all. In fact, he grew so much bone in my mouth that they had to go back and cut some of the bone out in order to put the implant in.
I heard you were eating fertilizer after I did the surgery.
Fertilize you. But, Lee, and doing all the seriousness of the talk we're talking about here today.
That's right. We've only got 10 minutes to be serious, Joe.
I know.
Let's do it now.
But,
We haven't done it for 50 minutes.
yes, we have to.
Okay.
Care of the teeth is a lot more important than the average person even considers. Can you explain to our listeners why it's so important to do some of the simple things that don't cost us anything, like using the right kind of toothpaste, using the right kind of brush, how you do it, how often you do the brushing, when you should do it, some of the things you shouldn't eat that do have an adverse effect on your mouth. Talk in general terms about some of the low-impact, low-cost things that people can do to prolong the life of the teeth that they do have.
Well, it's funny because patients will ask me, what's the right brush to use? What's the right floss to use? What's the right this to use? The only thing I'm concerned about is getting the plaque off the teeth. If you can do it with your fingernail, that's fine. Whatever you need to do, it's get it off. I think it's more important to make sure that you're doing it correctly. If I bought a set of golf clubs and a professional golfer had the same set of golf clubs, well, we'd be able to do two separate things with those golf clubs. And we won't talk about what I would do with those golf clubs. But
Lose a lot of golf balls like I do.
no kidding, yeah.
Okay.
I always used to buy the wet ones because they're going to get wet anyway. And the same thing here. I really think it's the training that you have with your hygienist or the dental assistant or the dentist to really make sure that you're doing things correctly. I'm talking about the mechanical implements because we talked about sugar and diet and that type of thing before. But I really think it's the training that's given to you and the willingness for you to receive the training. A lot of patients come in and say, well, I know how to brush my teeth. I know how to floss my teeth. And some do, but many don't. Many are going through the motions and think they're doing something, but they're not really doing it correctly. So I think there is the training aspect on one side, and I think there's the willingness of the patient to be trained on the other side. Because once you do that, you can, and you're effective in removing plaque. And you're really paying attention to what you're eating and as importantly, what you're not eating. Then you have the opportunity to minimize the amount of money you have to pay me. And nobody wants to pay me.
I never realized there was such an art to brushing teeth,
It
Lee.
is. I wish it were easier. It'd be nice if you could just put your teeth into something like a car wash and it would get all clean. And I suppose we've done better with the electric brushes and those types of things. We're better than we were before. But still, if you put the brush in the mouth, it still has to touch the tooth and touch the tooth in the right place in order to get that tooth clean.
Yeah. Well, the other night I was watching a movie. It was Denzel Washington who was in the movie. And everybody knows Denzel. He's a great actor. But there was a scene in the movie where he was brushing his teeth, and just the way he held the brush, the way he was manipulating the brush on his teeth, it really was a great ad for a dental office. And then to watch him spit into the cup and wash his mouth out, and he just made it look so neat. It's like he must have practiced. I thought to myself, guy must have practiced that line for that movie a lot.
I'll have to
and
try
didn't
that.
even
I'll have
require him to say a word.
Yeah,
You should look that up and have him put it in your.
absolutely put it in my YouTube. I can just put it in there. Yeah, I want. Yeah, give me the reference. I'll put that in.
What do you really think about the direction our country might have a chance to go now with the recent election? It's a political question, I know that, but I wanted to ask you about it because I know you've said a lot about it over the years.
Well, no, I haven't said a lot about it over the years because half the people agree with me and half the people won't. And I'm here to serve Democrats as well as Republicans. So I can tell you this, whether you're on the Democratic side or the Republican side is not as important as being straight and being honest and straight with yourself and expecting the same thing from your lawmakers. And I think for too long a period of time, there has been too many other influences which influenced our lawmakers to be greedy or greedier than they need to be. And I hope this is a signal. I don't think it's just the president that's going to do that. But I do think this is a signal that, in fact, we're going to bring ethics back into government. And if we do, we're all going to be better off.
Yeah. And this is something that I know that I asked this radio station owner a question. It was years ago. He had a program on here, and this couple were pretty tough on an organization. But what they were saying was true. And I asked John about it, and John said, let's talk radio. He said, one of our goals is to get the truth out to people, and we do it the best way we can. I've always been proud of the fact that I've been able to be on this radio station, and I don't remember a time that, you like to use the word censure or caution or anything like that. Never. John Harper has been around radio for a long, long time. I truly value the opinion that he's always given to me about the conduct of our radio shows, and if he thinks that we shouldn't talk about something, he would say it, but he has never done that.
Well, we'll see what he says after this show.
Well, we'll ask about it. But, talk radio is fun. And I think that somebody said to me one time, why do you really enjoy doing that, Joe? I said, well, I really enjoy my shows with Dr. Sheldon because we do talk about dentistry. We do talk about the mouth. We talk about the body. And Lee always gives an honest opinion about what he thinks. And Dr. Sheldon, you are a professional. You are as good as anybody I know in the field of dentistry. So I think that knowledge qualifies me to ask you some of the more difficult questions I've asked you over the years.
Yeah.
And it have not always been easy questions.
No.
And it's not easy to talk about dentistry for a long period of time. It's fun. I've enjoyed it. I'll give you the last word today.
Well, I enjoy talking about dentistry, but then again, I do enjoy talking as well. And I got to tell you, it is shows like this that have given me opportunities to be able to be more comfortable speaking, not only to patients, but speaking to large groups, and that's becoming a bigger and bigger part of my life right now, and it's very, very exciting for me.
Well, I think it's also important that our listeners need to know that you're taking the lead in doing a better job of causing orthodontics to be more widely known about the value of orthodontistry.
Periodontics.
Periodontics.
Yep. Right.
Okay. All right. We're out of time, folks. Thank you for listening to Dr. Sheldon and me today. We'll be back with you next week. Thank you, John, for running the board. Have a great weekend.